The Scripps Howard Foundation is proud to honor excellence in the television and cable category for in-depth national and international coverage. Winners of this Jack R. Howard Award are Holly Williams and the CBS Evening News team for Holy War. Holly Williams has covered uprisings and disasters, both natural and nuclear. She's evaded government security guards and posed as a buyer to investigate global trafficking of illegal ivory. Last summer, when insurgents from the Islamic State campaigned across northern Iraq, the veteran foreign correspondent led a CBS Evening News team into the epicenter. For millions of television viewers, their reports were an introduction into this savage new threat. They followed ISIS and its incendiary spread from the capitals of Damascus and Baghdad to Lebanon and Jordan and back into Syria. Along the way, they covered those who were fighting and those who were fleeing. They offered a first-hand look at life under the harsh Islamic law imposed by ISIS and the special horror reserved for Christians. Once, they followed a guide who took them less than a mile from ISIS troops, and they came under fire. Williams' interviews gave voice to the Kurds' female soldiers who would rather fight than be forced into ISIS servitude, and voice to a frightened 15-year-old captive of the Iraq army who described in graphic detail the coercion that made him an ISIS terrorist. Interviewed months later, Williams said she was driven to show viewers what the rise of ISIS looks like, and hopefully what it feels like, because it's an insurgency that in some way will touch us all.
Dangerous, courageous.
Very courageous.
It's unbelievably courageous reporting, but not reckless reporting. It was reporting that helped us to really understand what was going on, why it was going on, and who these people are that are involved.
She connected the dots for us without breaking a sweat.
I thought Holly's approach was calm, thoughtful, and was not overinflating the situation. She was reporting and giving context to what she saw. Those qualities have never been more important.
Presenting the Jack R. Howard Award for in-depth national and international coverage into the television and cable category, and $10,000 is Matthew Howard, grandson of Jack R. Howard. Accepting is Heather Abbott, senior producer of CBS Evening News.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Scripps Howard Foundation. Holly is on assignment in Lithuania, and if her day went well, she's just getting off a Tornado jet at the NATO base there, which I will probably hear about a little later tonight. She has sent a video statement, which I'll get to in a moment. But first, I wanted to thank Steve Kappes and Scott Pelley of CBS News for their unwavering support of international and foreign news, which is a real rarity these days and even more rare in the television side of things. CBS News made a very early commitment to cover the Syrian civil war. That's lasted 4 years. We haven't stopped. We have covered this from every side of this conflict, and we've had a team of reporters, of which Holly's been at the forefront, inside Damascus, inside Baghdad, the desert regions, the neighboring countries, you name it. And the same has been true, I'm happy to say, although I guess it's a dubious way of wanting something. We've been at the forefront of the ISIS insurgency as well when they rampaged across northern Iraq last June. Holly is part of our wonderful London bureau that is led by Andy Clark, and the stories you saw excerpts of here were done over a period of 5 months, very numerous locations, some of which required extensive planning. Getting in and out of Syria these days safely is a little tricky, to say the least. Holly is a great storyteller. She's also a fearless reporter, and by that I mean she's open to the unexpected. As anyone who has been in a war zone, whether it's Ebola or fighting the financial bureaucrats, you know it's surprising and more complicated than it ever first appears. Holly has an exacting eye for that kind of detail, and I think that's what makes her story stand out. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Holly and give her the last word.
I'd like to thank the Scripps Howard Foundation for this tremendous honor, and I'm sorry I can't be in Denver in person. I worked on these stories with an astonishingly talented group of people, including Erin Lyle, Justine Redman, Agnes Rayo, Omar, Lynn Edwards, Fernando Suarez, Paolo Marenghi, Abdi Kadani, Andy Stevenson, and Torsten Hoffler. And I'd like to say a special thanks to Heather Abbott, who was the senior producer on all of these stories and who is a warrior for foreign news. The idea behind all of these stories was very simple, actually. We wanted our audience in America to hear the voices of people in Iraq and Syria who are fighting on the ground against ISIS, who are fighting for their homes and their land and their towns and their way of life, and in many cases are doing so with out-of-date weapons and not enough bullets. We had a lot of luck in several of these stories. We went to Syria to interview the Kurdish men and women who are battling against ISIS, but we were very fortuitous to be in the right place at the right time to see an active front line. In fact, we were lucky enough to essentially drive through it. We pleaded to be given access to a prison in Syria where we'd heard there were ISIS prisoners, but we had no idea until we got there that we would find a teenage fighter with bullet wounds to his stomach. And we drove down the highway towards Mosul in June, hoping to find communities that were holding out against the militants. But we literally stumbled across the ancient Christian town of Bartella and the local militiamen who were defending it. So most of all, I'd like to thank all of those people for allowing us to tell their stories.